Morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. You have Scottish heritage, don't you?
Yeah, my dad's a Scot.
Yeah, because you just did the most fantastic Scottish accent.
Yeah, we'll tell you why in a minute.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go through the papers this morning with Tom Slater, editor of Spiked Online, and Nikki Hodgson, the author and broadcaster. Good morning to you both.
Hi.
Morning. Let's kick off with a bit of The Observer, Tom. How popular is the Labour Party? Well, in the polls, it's doing very well.
Yes, I mean, historic poll leads, you know, they 30 points in one the other day, the highest lead that they've ever had in all of YouGov's history. Some, yeah, the lower end, we're talking about 15-point lead and all the rest of it. So will that last? And we're in a very unique point at the moment where we had that market meltdown in response to the budget. Obviously, we're all sorts of crises.
It's bounced back.
It has.
This is, I mean, the market's been low for a while, but so the big concern was the pound, wasn't it? Now, within a matter of 4 days, it bounced back to the levels it was before it started to dip. So, I mean, that's a fairly swift recovery.
I think the difficulty is it feels like the political damage is already done. I think this will go down as a kind of similar, at least in people's minds, to a kind of Black Wednesday moment where it felt like everyone went haywire, the Tories lost control. And also, given the fact that the Tories were in a bit of a hole in terms of their standing with the public as a result of all of the infighting and Partygate and all of the way in which Boris Johnson's administration crumbled. Liz Truss seems to have just dug a fair bit further down deeper, and they have been in power for a long time, and all these things make a big impact. But so much so, a lot of the MPs who lost their seats, former Labour MPs in the Red Wall, are now thinking about a comeback, essentially. And you just...
And wouldn't that revenge be sweet?
But isn't it interesting? The headline we just showed, which I fancy, it's something about cavalier tax cuts. Right, well, presumably people in Red Wall season, no one's thinking that the penny off income tax is a cavalier tax cut. So they're only looking at the 45p tax cut that they're considering, which, according to Liam Halligan, our economics editor, is in the great scheme of things, that costs nothing.
Yeah,
actually,
2 billion.
So
that's
it's
a lot.
So that it's optics. It's actually all optics, and not actually to do with how it's going to affect the economy.
I mean, it comes back to one thing that we were talking about earlier, and a lot of people have been talking about, is the way in which Liz Truss sold this budget and sold her particular programme. It's very easy for that programme to be caricatured as just giving handouts to the rich and all the rest of it. And they did nothing to dispel that or to try and make the argument out in public. And but, you know, in general, I think what's interesting is there's obviously been a lot of talk about how Keir Starmer's had a brilliant conference and isn't he such a brilliant leader, and all of the concerns people had previously have sort of melted away. But his whole kind of guiding principle has been that old adage of governments, you know, oppositions don't win elections, governments lose them. He's just been waiting for the current administration to decompose, and it has. But you do wonder whether or not some of these old tensions and old battles will flare up, given the fact that some of these Red Wall MPs in seats, like Anna Turley here, former Redcar MP, voted 66% to leave. And part of the reason those flipped is because people like Anna Turley were actually campaigning for a second referendum and all the rest of it. Is that ancient history in many people's minds? Potentially. It does feel like we've turned the page, and there's been so many historical catastrophes that have happened since then. It's almost quaint to think back to the Brexit rows. But nevertheless, this is still a Labour Party which is still, in many respects, kind of detached from those constituencies. The Tories have squandered their opportunity to carve out that new base, at least for the moment. But at the same time, in the long run, is Labour going to be able to convince
Nobody's
those voters?
polled in those areas yet, have they? When we've had a lot of national polling, in which Labour are very far ahead, but nobody's actually polled in those Red Wall seats. It would be nice to know if the voters themselves feel differently now.
Exactly. It's a lot of it at the moment is, again, just sort of vox pops and anecdotes and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think that the general image I get at this point is that historic opportunity the Tories had to carve out this new working class base feels like it's been squandered for the moment, at least.
Yeah, but you raised a very interesting point as to whether constituents in those areas think they can trust Labour again, in the fact that they voted for something and a lot of Labour MPs just said, actually, you voted wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is it a case that we're just going to lose them as voters? Because that's kind of more likely, isn't it, thinking about voting numbers?
And non-voters were the ones who really made the difference with Brexit, and then Boris Johnson, people who voted for Labour a long time ago, ended up not voting, then kind of came back into the mix to vote Leave and then to vote for Boris Johnson.
And also, as you say, yes, the personal vote for Boris, and that now they've got somebody they didn't vote for.
Yeah. Interesting. If you're in one of those areas, let us know. GBNEWS at GBNEWS.uk. So look at the Sunday Telegraph, Nikki, and skirts on aeroplanes.
Not the passengers.
Mandatory skirts.
Yeah, no, basically. So you might have seen that story about Virgin Airlines saying that they were going to get rid of gendered uniform policies and that their male cabin staff could now wear skirts if they wanted to. Well, British Airways, fearing, I don't know, some kind of recompense if they don't do the same, has actually said they're also reviewing their uniform policy. They haven't gone as far to say that they're going to do the same thing, but they said it's kind of time to, have another look at these very gendered rules that kind of, that manifest themselves in how cabin staff are treated and how they're expected to present to the people there.
But the headline there says it's about male pilots wearing skirts.
Well, that's a uniform.
Oh, absolutely.
I've
Not going to get away the pedals, is it?
I don't know.
I've got zero issues whether somebody wears a skirt or not, but I'm just kind of, is it really the thing that's going to increase the take-up of wearing skirts? I don't know, it just feels kind of very token.
Do you know what I sort of think is what I was saying to you, and come back to our Scottish accent, is that I can imagine, I could be wrong, but I can imagine there are plenty of you at home watching or listening saying, well, they shouldn't be wearing, what's going on, the world's gone mad, why should they all be wearing skirts, these fellas? But if it was a kilt, no one bats an eyelid. So I sort of think, why does it matter?
I don't know, there's something about the pilot, it's something about the captain wearing a kilt. Why would you, I just can't quite picture it.
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
lady pilots, obviously, they...
Well, I bet they wear trousers.
I think they do, the ones I've seen,
But
yeah.
I think they can wear either, can't they? They've got the choice.
Got the
So
choice.
the issue is the choice.
I just sort of think...
You don't do anything with your feet when you're flying
I
an
have no
aeroplane, do
idea.
you?
I don't know.
Your legs are not great.
I just sort of think, I can imagine people throwing their arms up in the air saying, why should men be wearing skirts? But isn't it marvellous when we sit, we buy our porridge oats and there's a man on the front with a kilt?
Yeah.
And what's the difference? We have these ideas which are just sort of set into it.
Yeah, they're so codified.
It's about what's right and what's
I also
wrong.
think it doesn't mean everybody's going to suddenly go out and
No, of course
wear
not.
a skirt, does it?
But it's just about making it equal. If you
Yeah.
want to have that choice, if you want to have that choice, you can all have it.
Seems fair enough, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's always worked the other way, because women and schoolgirls and all the rest of it have been allowed to wear trousers for years.
Yeah, and many schools are letting boys wear skirts now. Like,
Going in the other
it's kind of
direction.
accepted that they should even it up.
But I think it's also that kind of corporate virtue signalling,
Yeah.
because I can't imagine there were loads of pilots, either Virgin or BA, who were demanding the right to be able to wear a
Well, I'm
it's
just really
trying to
hoping-
get ahead of it, to try and gain some
Yeah.
So
cred.
one may have asked, and then at which point they have to look
They
at
have to
policies
review
and
the policy.
say,
Yeah.
well, actually, why not?
Yeah.
I just really want to get a Virgin flight now, and everybody's wearing a skirt.
No, I'll have a look at the
So
cockpit.
if that's happening, let me know. I'll be
Yes,
there.
if you now fly Virgin and your cabin crew are not wearing skirts, you'd be really disappointed.
Yeah, you will. You feel cheated somehow.
I don't know, I'm with you, Nick, and I just think, well,
Yeah.
who cares?
Can you do your job? Can you look after me?
Yeah, just wear what you like. It's only Virgin recently allowed you tattoos to be showed.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Right.
That's the new
Yeah,
thing.
I
It's
find
like,
that strange too.
I think, everyone's got tattoos nowadays.
Yes.
Well, if you've got any, I don't know. You have, haven't
I actually don't.
Don't you? Oh, it's just
No.
me. It's just me and you. We have. Anyway, let's look at the climate protest in the Mail on Sunday.
Yes, so Just Stop Oil, one of the kind of offshoots of the Extinction Rebellion, have been mounting a protest yesterday, shut down a number of the bridges in London, part of what they're calling their October uprising. The failure of this lot to be able to read the room at a time like this, when there is an energy and fuel crisis, when you do have a lot of people really struggling to get by, making their lives more difficult, doesn't seem to be a particularly good way to win people over. But I think with this lot, they kind of don't want to win people over. I think they just want to bask in their own righteousness and safe in the knowledge that, to be honest, on a lot of these kind of environmentalist policies, the government isn't a million miles away from what it is that they want. They just want things to be happening quicker and faster and all the rest of it, whilst claiming the government is genocidal for some reason.
Really?
I'm not sure why, but this sort of rhetoric makes no sense outside of like a students' union common room, and I don't think they realise this.
No, well,
But it feels like they're trying to capitalise on people's discontent, doesn't it? So they're not necessarily thinking that large swathes of people that normally are sitting at home will come and join them, but if they kind of represent, they can drag them into it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I suppose the difficulty is that they do strike people as a certain subset of kind of like perma-protest
Yeah.
that are particularly relatable. I mean, there was a story, I won't go into the details of it, but of the little monument to Captain Tom being covered with a substance in protest against private jets. And you think, if you wanted to alienate people, this is what you're doing. But I think they don't mind about alienating people.
No, they just want
It's
press.
You know,
What is it about? I walked through London when some of the protests around a couple of years ago, and as you walk past the crowd, people, they look like protesters. You know what I mean? And they were all ages, but they look like protesters, and a lot of them look like they could have done with hosing down.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you just sort of think, why are these people drawn to, are they just part of society that feel they're a bit outcast and nobody listens to them, therefore if they've got a chance to protest they will do?
I think it must be a bit of that.
It's a bit of a lifestyle and a hobby as well for a lot of people, I think. I mean, protesters you see it with the kind of slightly amdram aspect to a lot of these Extinction Rebellion things, where they'll erect some sort of structure for no reason at all and do these little kind of street theatre things. It just becomes a way of kind of personal self-fulfillment rather than even achieving a particular goal for some people, I think.
Yeah.
But then they'll claim they can't sit around doing nothing. They have to do it for the sake of their children, for the sake of the planet. You know, that's what they say to you if you ask them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, fair point. We do live in a world where protests are allowed, or a country where...
Well, at the minute, yeah, I know there's some more laws
But
put
part
down
of
the
their
pipeline.
agenda is probably to get a certain amount of press
Yeah,
for
always,
their organisation,
always.
and so they do something completely outrageous in order to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's ways of doing it, because I mean, we didn't object to the, what were they called, the dads who dressed up in the superhero costumes.
Some people did.
Well, some people did, but they were sort of generally sort of applauded as raising a valid point and doing it in a way that wasn't really getting in the way of other people.
Yeah, and the Sarah Everard vigil, we started protest. I was on that. You know, that was very peaceful. Obviously, it didn't end that way, but that wasn't the fault of the protesters, and people were largely behind that expression.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But pouring excrement over Captain Tom's memorial.
it seems
It's just so disgusting. And as you say, the inability to read the room, nobody is going to like that.
I was going to see that and think, right on.
Yeah.
You know? Very, very
Strange people about. Money laundering. Now, this is a very serious matter, but not in the way we were expecting in the Mail on Sunday, Nikki.
Gosh, this really is a serious story, and it might just save you some money. So apparently Britons lose £800 million a year in their washing machines and tumble dryers.
Not huge, presumably, but...
No, not
Each. No, I hasten to add not each. You haven't got a little lottery win sitting in your washer.
What, in £5 notes or something?
Notes and coins are the most common things to be found in the filters and the doors of washing machines and dryers. And so...
I have found a few coins.
I've washed the odd note. I mean, it's that joy, isn't it, if you ever go in an old jacket and you find there's a tenner in there. It's just like winning something. But apparently what we should all be doing, as well as turning all the lights off, is checking our washers and our dryers. And the other places are behind the back of the sofa.
Always.
590 million lost last year.
Behind it, is that stuffed in the sofa?
Yeah, apparently the average is £10.90 each, just to put it into perspective.
Per sofa.
Per person. And then the other spot for lost cash is the car and the car seats, where you might find the average of £9.33.
An average of £9.30.
So between those appliances and those locations,
It just shows if you're feeling hard up, just go searching. There's always stuff down in our sofa. It's amazing, actually. It's exciting.
It's a vortex.
Take the big cushion out and actually having a look. You find all sorts of things that you've been missing for ages.
The problem is when you do that.
Pens and pencils.
Well, it's the crumbs.
The crumbs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, crumbs.
Then you've got to get the Hoover out.
You've got to commit to that job.
Yes, you
It's
really
not a 2-minute job.
No.
Not a 2-minute. Mind you, I suppose we're doing better now. We have those plasticated sort of notes.
Yeah, they can survive
the wash.
They do survive the wash. More of a reason to go looking.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. If you
Go look now.
if you find anything in the next 10 minutes, get in touch with GBNEWS.
Cost of living crisis. You need these things.
Yeah.
800 million. You can't believe it's that much.
Terrible.
I mean, think what you could do with that if we all surrendered the bits and pieces that are down the end of the sofa.
Yeah.
Build a hospital for
Maybe
that.
it's the NHS.
Yeah.
I don't use cash much, but I've still got a little jar with you just shut your loose change in, and there's nothing more. I know they do charge you a fee for doing it, but there's nothing more satisfying than going to one of those machines.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, it's clocked up about 30 quid or something.
Yeah.
Does everybody have that in their kitchen? A drawer with the little.
Yeah, we've got a piggy bank by the door.
Yeah.
Just put your coins in.
Yeah.
It encourages visitors as well if they want to take that.
Would make a small donation, isn't it?
Oh, that's a nice idea.
That's brilliant.
Well, people are drawn to a piggy bank. It's kind of romantic, isn't it? You want to put something in it. So.
Oh, excellent.
Well, that's how they encourage people to give coins, isn't it? Those things that you put the coin in.
Yeah, those whirly.
Whirly right into the bottom.
I might build a wishing well in the front garden.
That's a very good idea.
Very good.
Could be very profitable. Put a little sign saying nothing less than £1 coin.
No time
Your wish won't be granted if it's under £1.
None of your euros in here.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, that's something like...
Sterling only, please.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
a very good idea.
Yeah.
Nobody can resist. Brilliant idea.
Lovely. Let's talk about working from home, Tom, in the Sun on Sunday.
So now it's Sherlock work from homes.
Oh dear.
Now I get it.
Crime fighters tackling crooks and working from their bedrooms, being paid as much as £360 a day. So this is investigators that might work for not just banks and councils, but even the Home Office. There's even talk here of people working for UK Border Force, new
From home?
working from home. Now, I'm sure that some of that job can be done from home, as so much of
Computer,
things are on the
being
internet
computer, isn't it?
these days. But you do think, like, at some point, we've just got to move away from this whole culture. Particularly, I think, when you have different kind of, particularly when we're talking about kind of state institutions and stuff, they see them failing across the board. They see how difficult it is to even get the most basic services. They see the problems at the border or whatever, and they find out people just working from their kitchens. It does create the impression that it's just not all pulling in one direction.
It's funny though, too, people moan about passports, and I got my other half's passport renewed, and it came back in just over a week, which I thought was great.
Very good.
That was a couple of months ago. But my driving licence has gone off because I have to have a new photo card thing, and that's been about 6 weeks so far without driving.
Everyone's been complaining about the backlog at the DVLA,
So,
apparently.
but you do quite a lot of work from home, don't you?
I mainly work from home. Depressingly so, actually. That's why I love coming here, so you can talk to somebody.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm the opposite. I'd love to be in an office, but I don't have that kind of job, so I'm freelance.
Well, neither of you running the London Marathon today, which is obviously very disappointing.
We'll let you go.
Try better.
Yeah,
We've sacrificed our
starting
talk to you
Did,
instead.
yeah, well, that's very kind of you. Thank you both very much indeed.
Lots of our viewers have.
We've got to say, Gwen. We've got to say hello to Gwen, who works in Wingfield Care Home. Says, please wish good luck to Sue, our activities manager, who's running the London Marathon today to raise money for Dementia UK.
Excellent stuff.
Good luck to you.
Yeah, good luck. And we've got some pictures too from you. Thank you very much. Jonathan says, I completed the London Marathon last year. It was an amazing experience, but it needs a better course around more of the city's landmarks. I've completed Paris and Berlin marathons, and both courses are better. And yes, once you've done it, you do get hooked.
And there's your medals.
Well done.
Fabulous. Travis, morning to you, Travis, said, I did the London Marathon in 2019 after only 15 weeks of training and never running in my life before after having a stroke in 2018.
Wow.
So you can do it. It's a state of mind and the crowd that drives you on. And he raised £2,300 for the Stroke Association.
Well done.
Amazing.
Well done. Then there's Kirsty in Guernsey who says, I got a ballot place in 2015 and I used it to raise money for the charity Cancer Research UK. I had never run before. Started a training plan in the January and crossed the line in 5 hours, 24 minutes. It's a day I'll never forget. My husband Tony got my T-shirt and medal framed for me at Christmas.
Brilliant stuff. Well done to all of you. We'll go through more of those in the next hour. Keep them coming through. GBNews at gbnews.uk. And we're back with all the headlines after a look at the weather.